is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering WestWorld, Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis Theory. In this episode, Caleb is now in charge. What is he going to do with his newfound power? And how can he help Maeve? And what happened to Dolores? And why is Bernard just sitting there and covered in dust? And what's going on with Stubbs? Is he just sitting there too, also covered in dust? And nobody's tried to make up the room? There's no housekeeping in this place? I'm sure they haven't paid out for months and months. Anyway, welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
So,
the word of the day is inanimate. Inanimate.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, but that is hilarious. I can't. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I posted yesterday on Facebook about it because I'm still thinking about it.
I was listening to a new Dresden Files book right after we recorded that episode, and a character in that said, "It's inanimate." And I was like, "You
oh my
fucks.
God.
Shut up." It felt like they were rubbing it in my face. Felt like they were purposely just being like, "Oh yeah, we know that word. We all know that word." Anyway, so this episode, first of all, it was real long.
I thought it went by really fast when I was watching it. I was like, oh shit, it's over already.
I have to agree. It was like, it didn't feel as long as it was. Mm-hmm. I am not entirely sure about this as the season wrap-up, though.
Really?
I don't know how I feel overall. And it's not really like I expected XYZ and I didn't get it. It's not anything that concrete. I just feel like not done. I'm not satisfied. You know what I mean? And I don't really know what else I wanted here. I think that I wanted any sort of a plan to kind of be rolling into season 2 with, and not necessarily that we have to follow that plan in season 2, but I would, season 4, my bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But more that I wanted I wanted Caleb to have like an aim and a goal that he was sort of like, and I'm not mad at him that he doesn't have one, because that's kind of the whole thing, is that Caleb's making this all up as he goes along and he doesn't know what's happening, you know?
It's only been like 20 minutes,
right,
as far as Caleb's concerned.
But I think that it was like the enormity of what he did in basically deleting Rehoboam. What a horrible name. Who named this thing this season? I just don't get it. Like,
I think they got really, by they I mean the writers, really liked the idea of the fact that these iterations of this machine were, following the naming convention of the sons in the Bible, right? And they did not realize that the rest of us would not be so entranced.
I don't care about it. I got news for him. I don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, Sean. Nobody cares. I just this is one of those kill your darlings moments where writers get attached to an idea and they just really go up their own asses with it, and they seem to think that that is like a real genius thing. And I just be happy that y'all came up with Insight.
I feel like for a second we were talking about Game of Thrones.
We're not going to talk about that.
You know, getting all up their own ass.
We are not going to talk about that. We are not doing it, ma'am.
All right. Fair enough.
But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things that I kind of feel like maybe if I rewatched it, I would be more satisfied with it.
I will tell you that happened for me.
Okay.
When I watched it the first time, I really liked the season. I enjoyed the season. I really did. Mm-hmm. When I first watched the finale, I thought it was very good. I felt a little like, but it's rushed though. You know, we didn't really have. We should have had more time. And I started thinking, well, they only did the 8 episodes. Maybe that was a misstep. But when I watched it tonight, I was on the edge of my seat. I legit had tears for a quick moment. And I just was really hyped for the next season. So, yeah, I'd be curious if you watch it again, if you will feel any differently about it.
Yeah, I was talking with Money about it, just like, not really about plot points or anything, but I think I told you that he wasn't a huge fan of this season, but that he was really glad that I enjoyed this season, because he was like, first of all, I just don't want to hear you ranting and raving for a whole season about how much you hate something. Like, that's no fun for you, and that's no fun for anybody else.
It's no fun for me.
And, also, I think that it's just, when I go into something, there are times where I think people mean well, but they don't know how much it can influence my opinion if they just make a, kind of offhand comment. So if somebody was like, oh, season 3, all right, well, I'll be interested to hear what you think. In that kind of thing, and it will color everything that, So I think that I had a bit of an advantage here where I really didn't know anything about whether people liked it or not. And I kind of assumed people didn't love it because I didn't hear anything about it on social media.
Right. I told you a couple episodes ago that as far as I could tell, this was a real mixed bag for a lot of people. It was not a sensation in the way that, it was everywhere and everyone was talking about it. That didn't happen. Lots of places still covered it. Lots of outlets still podcasted about it and all that. And I don't listen to any of those because then, I have to record with you and I don't want to, accidentally just repeat some shit I heard someone else say.
I don't think that's, a terrible... people give you ideas or give you... I don't think that's an inherently bad thing.
Yeah, I always feel weird about it though, because then I don't want somebody to be like, oh, so and so said that too. Yeah, but yeah, it just felt like it kind of did not have an impact in the way that the first 2 seasons did, especially the first season, and then the second season because it was coming off of the hype of the first season, so 1 million people were watching it. And then people, felt however they felt about it. I didn't really get any of that this time.
Yeah.
Which I think is sad, because I thought that this was a much better season than season 2.
I definitely agree with that. You guys all know, I wasn't really a big fan of the way season 2 wrapped. I thought that it started off with some really interesting ideas and then sort of seemed to, lose track of itself. It was just... that they did that thing where they try to get too clever, and you don't need to do that all the time. It's fine. You can be straightforward with your story, and if your story is good enough, you don't need to trick people.
Yeah.
But I really like that. There are still some tricks up their sleeve, but it's not the same thing as feeling like you've been outright manipulated.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, they found a way, I think, to tell the story, and we talked about this too last time or the time before, where instead of playing a lot of games with timelines and whatnot. What they did instead was introduce Caleb and had us kind of following along as he's putting the pieces of his own history together.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's a much more interesting way to do it. And it does remind me of Dolores in season 1.
First season Dolores, right? Yeah, same.
And I think that is part of the point, is that they were like, well, what if we did a similar thing, but we did it with, an actual regular old human being, and showed how they can be manipulated.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get into the actual plot. So we start off with Dolores talking about how she was trained to see the beauty, but it was a lie. And it's in direct contrast with what she says later about how, it's not even in contrast. It's because when she says I was taught to see the beauty, but it was a lie, it's not like she's saying that the beauty in the world is a lie. For me, it felt like she was saying the beauty that I was taught to see was all
the lie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because she was taught to see it. It wasn't like she was really experiencing it and appreciating it, herself.
Exactly. So I rather liked that it felt like when you watch it when you go through that sequence the first time and she says it was a lie, it's very easy to interpret this as like, oh shit, she feels like she got fucking duped and everything is terrible. And then it turns out like maybe that's not how she feels. Or... Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I liked that surprise.
By the end of the episode, she's talking to Maeve and we find out that it's not the beauty that she was taught to see that made the difference. It was these other unexpected moments of kindness that really showed her.
Yes.
The beauty that existed and the beauty that's possible. And because, we've been thinking about Dolores this whole season as, I don't want to say the bad guy, because that just seems way too simple.
Yeah.
But as like the destroyer,
that's a good way to put it. She's Kali.
And when we find out that really, no, that is... I mean, yes, she wants to destroy it all, but it's not because she wants to annihilate humanity.
Right.
It's a very different thing that's motivating her. I thought that was I appreciated that ending, and it didn't feel cheap to me.
Agreed. And it's honestly so relatable. I mean, that is just how I have been feeling lately, is just everything is so corrupted and so... just everything has strayed so far from what we intended it all to be that burning it all down feels like the only option in a lot of ways.
Right.
Right.
But there has to be more to, which is what Dolores' point is it can't be just the burning down of it.
Right.
It's the potential to rebuild something in its place that is better. It's a much, much more optimistic Dolores than I feel like the season had us expecting.
Agreed.
And
I kind of feel like it was in her best interest to show that a little bit more, and she didn't, and I wish she had.
That's a good point.
I feel like she just really let everybody believe that she wanted to just tear it all down and ruin it all, and leave it that way, or make herself the center of it. And that wasn't what she wanted. And if they had known, maybe she would have had more allies to begin with.
The only thing I can say to that is, and it's weird because it's so fucking obvious, and it never occurred to me. Dolores said repeatedly that everyone has a role to play. And she clearly meant herself as well. But for some reason, I never stopped to think of that.
Yeah.
Like the role of this particular Dolores that we see throughout this season, the one that we know, it's actually very narrow. It's not a very complex character, right? There's not a lot of depth to this Dolores. She's like single-minded. You know, it's just this one objective, and there's not a lot of layers to her.
Yeah.
Because the Dolores that is playing this role doesn't need all those other layers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is her particular role to play.
Yeah. I wonder if, like... I wonder what Bernard is going to think of this.
Girl, can I tell you something that I feel like people will hate me for?
Please.
Of the things that I didn't enjoy this season, as much as I loved whenever Bernard was on the screen with Stubbs, because they're just delightful, the Bernard storyline for this season was one of, like, my least favorite parts.
It is. I think that really is where I'm feeling the most dissatisfaction. Bernard's been this, like, big softy side character that felt... And you know what, guys? I think that you and I should talk about this in concept rather than beat by beat, the way that we have other things. Other episodes. Because this episode, really, there is a lot that I think is, like, potentially sort of skippable. There's a lot of, like, going through areas with tons of rioting and fight, you know, and it, you know. So if we just talk about Bernard, the one thing that I did really like was Bernard apparently having this key himself rather than Dolores having it.
I love that. When Dolores says, when Maeve is like, so you really don't have the key, and Dolores says, yeah, I couldn't trust myself with it, so I gave it to someone I could trust. Mm-hmm. Did you immediately think Bernard?
Yes.
Or what did you think? You did?
I did.
I didn't.
Really?
Why didn't I?
I don't know. I am surprised by that, though.
When the reveal happens, I'm like, oh, of fucking course. But for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was weird from the start of the season that Dolores had the key to paradise. That just felt like a very un-Dolores thing.
Really?
It did. Dolores is interested in the practical, actual world that we are in at the moment, and this, like, virtual other universe. I don't know what else to call it.
Bernard calls it the sublime.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that? Okay.
No, kids. I'm sorry. It's just too...
The Valley Beyond?
Okay. Valley Beyond. That just doesn't feel like what Dolores is interested in. And the idea that she would hold the key for it, it felt like she was setting herself up to be targeted for something that I just didn't really buy she would want to give her life to defend. It doesn't feel like her to me.
Right.
So I was like, I mean, I guess she could use it for leverage, and that was about as much as I believed it. Was just like, well,
really?
Leverage-wise, I guess that makes sense. But once she says, I gave it to somebody I could trust, immediately I was like, oh, Bernard, and that makes way more sense. Like, that felt so much more appropriate.
It does, like, for me, in hindsight, it's just like, of course that's what she did.
Yeah.
I never took a moment to really interrogate it. I just kind of, you know, the end of season 2, we see her at the terminal, you know, we see her closing the door, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, she's got it. She's the one who has the key. It's right there. Which at that time she does,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
But then she later gives it. It just never occurred to me that she wouldn't still have it.
Yeah, it's not like I you know, was really like caught up by it. It wasn't something that I gave a ton of thought.
Sure.
But it was something that I just kind of was like, that's weird for her to be the one, you know? It just didn't seem to me like letting hosts into it that would want to get into it would particularly ruin her plans. These are, like, if they are that fixated on trying to get in, go ahead and let them. What is that doing to your cause? You've got a bunch of copies of yourself and other hosts of you all around working on shit. Let them go have a good time in this fucking other place while you do whatever the fuck you need to do. Like, And I still kind of do feel that way. I mean, when she says, I didn't trust myself with it, I do want to know, like, what does that mean? What did you think you might do to it? Did you think you'd run and escape there? Like,
that's what I thought. That's
interesting.
I thought maybe she thought that she would either give up on her plans and go there to escape, or that she would sacrifice them all in pursuit of her goal. Like, if there was a moment where the choice was, do I keep this key safe, or do I just say fuck it because I need to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish? I'll just sell them all out. Because I don't really care about them anyway, because my objective is this other thing.
Yeah.
But
okay,
then
I see that.
Right? So then that suggests that she believes, which it makes sense, that Bernard would not ever sell them out. And that's really what makes him the safer bet.
Okay.
But, but then, in my opinion, it gets a little tricky from there, because no one knows Bernard has it.
Right.
So how is he selling? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah. But that was my thinking as far as when she says, I had to give it to someone I would trust. I was like, all right, well, it's either she's afraid she's going to just tap out and want to go there herself, which I don't even know if that's logistically possible. Or she would just fuck them all to get what she needs done.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is how could she do that? Can she just, like, disappear inside her own mind?
Well, that's the show did this thing that, unfortunately, I am not 100% sure I understand how it all works, and I don't even know if we're supposed to. But, like, when we see, like, when Maeve talks to Dolores in her head, they're just, like, in this field, right?
Right.
And we know that Sirach has been promising Maeve that he can send her to wherever her child is. But I'm not sure. Maybe I misunderstood. I think Sirach was saying that if he could get the key to open the door, he would let Maeve through it. Right?
Okay.
That's gotta be how that would have worked.
I think so, yeah.
But I am not sure if I understand, like, the logistics of how does that work.
And how they were able to talk mind to mind and be in this field as well?
Well, I know Maeve, because Maeve says earlier in one of the fight scenes, she's like, let me read your mind. So my assumption as far as that part goes, that because Maeve has the ability to control hosts to some degree, that must also allow her to, check in with Dolores.
Okay.
In her, she might not be able to control Dolores' actions like she can when she's at the park fighting the Nazis, but I guess she has a way to, I don't know, it's like Bluetooth. Like, if you just get them close enough together.
My God, that sure was not what I expected to hear today. Well, she's got control over via Bluetooth, the way you do. I mean, all right, sure.
I mean, if you've got something else better, throw it out there.
I do not. God, that is really amazing.
So we're still, finish talking about Bernard, I guess.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of him going to visit Arnold's widow?
I feel like this was just not a nice thing to do to her, personally. I don't... First of all, let's be honest. I do not care about this anymore. Can I just say that?
That's the main thing.
Because am not invested.
This is not Arnold having this experience of meeting his widow and sharing this tender moment of, grieving for their lost child.
Right.
This is a host.
Right.
So, even though he's crying real tears, we all know if somebody were just suddenly to be like, turn off affect, those tears would be gone. So that
that didn't affect me. That didn't bother me so much, because as much as like that is true of the fact that they can be turned off that way, I don't feel like that changes how real it is for them. Like, you could bash me over the back of the head and knock me unconscious and I'm going to stop crying. That doesn't mean that I'm not.
No. What I mean is not that the emotion isn't sincere, even though, again, it's a host, so all the emotions are programmed and they're just responding to stimuli, right?
Right.
But something about, I'm not sure I 100% understand why a Bernard bot would be comforting to this woman, I think, is my main concern.
Oh, I didn't think that she knew he was one.
Well, I don't think she knows he's actually a host, but she's got to know it's not him.
I don't know, does she? Like, I kind of thought that it's supposed to be that her, like, faculties are disintegrating, and therefore she can't quite piece together that he isn't who, you know what I mean?
Okay, so she's in some kind of dementia.
Yeah.
And maybe her time, her awareness of what time it actually is not quite right. Oh, and that makes me all the more sadder, though.
Why is that?
It's just sad.
I mean, yes. Agreed.
Oh, I don't know. Did you think it, like, as far as the overall story, like, does it feel like it made sense for the story?
That's kind of what I mean when I say, like, I don't really get what they wanted to happen here. It just, I don't think, I would be interested to know who was still invested enough to care about this. What were the writers going for here? Because it's not like Bernard doesn't seem like a person to us. It's not like they needed to humanize him further. Do you know what I mean? So that's really the thing that I'm sort of like lost about, is just, I don't really understand. We know that he like had this boy, this son, that he had this person that meant a lot to him, and that's all fine. Right. But I don't really understand what this scene was supposed to. Is it meant to like remind us that this is real to him? Because I don't feel like we forgot that, and I just don't really understand the point of it.
If I'm not mistaken, he gets sent to go see her. Because when him and Stubbs are dealing with William when he's got the shotgun, and then Bernard hits the little button, and then like fucking badass Bernard comes out. And the cops show up, and one of the cops is Lawrence. Or El Lazo.
Right,
and
yes.
He hands him this briefcase and tells him, you have to go see her. Now, I assume that her was Dolores.
Same.
But he shows up at this house instead. So, yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I feel like the show wanted to fill time, honestly. It feels like they just didn't really know what to do with Bernard. And they kind of just wung it. And that might just be me interpreting it that way, but it doesn't feel like they had a lot of direction with him. The whole thing with Stubbs being added to the story, it was like, well, we need him to have somebody to fucking talk to, because nobody wants to watch him wander around by himself for a whole season.
Right,
but
right.
Stubbs doesn't feel essential. There's not growth particularly. I really enjoy him. Don't get me wrong. I like him added because he's a wisecracking foil to this, like, upright fucking citizen, and we needed that. But it just, I don't really know what they are after here.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I feel bad, like maybe I just missed something because, it's very clear that when they hand him the briefcase, they say, you have to go see her first.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we're supposed to think that he needs some type of closure before he can move on to whatever the next phase is.
Mm-hmm.
As if this experience he's hanging on to it in some way.
Yeah.
That is prohibiting him from becoming whatever it is he needs to become, right? To do the next thing. Mm-hmm. And it might be just as simple as that, I'm not sure how, because also I get fuzzy because I know that, this Bernard is a host, but I am also aware that they are like thinking for themselves at this point, and they're more than just robots on a loop,
right? But
that doesn't make them human, and I'm not sure how much closure a host needs.
Yeah.
I'm just very fuzzy on those details. But as far as everything else, I feel 100% in agreement. Like, the Bernard storyline didn't bring a lot to the plot.
Yeah.
Didn't really move anything forward because he was always like 2 steps behind Dolores. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that I knew what they were doing in that they were setting him up to be the host that is the most human. That Dolores is like the fucking, like you put it, the destroyer, the angel of vengeance. And he was going to be the one that, like, saw the goodness and was able to... And I'm not hugely angry they didn't do that because that's rather trite. So if they wanted to flip that up, that's fine. But I don't... Now I really don't understand the purpose of him. So, I'll
say this much. By the end of the episode, when he's all covered in dust, he looks like the fucking destroyer of his damn self.
That's true.
So, that face when he fucking opens his eyes, that's not a happy face.
True.
So, I mean, and I really like Jeffrey Wright as an actor, and I always enjoy him on the screen, so I don't want to feel like I'm, like, just, like, dogging him to be dogging him.
No, I don't think anybody thinks that.
But it really does, feel like they just didn't have a lot for him to do. And they also needed the Man in Black to be able to interact with some hosts that weren't Dolores.
Right.
And so I guess they serve that purpose as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I suppose.
So, do you want to move on to Caleb? Or do you want to do...
Yeah,
Charlotte,
well, I do want to mention, too, that I'm just, like, really hoping that Stubbs isn't just fucking sitting there, like...
in a tub of water because his ice melted?
Yeah, like, and rotting. Like, I just... Stubbs is, like, that weird side character that just gets the most shit end of the stick every time. And it just feels really, like... unfair and unnecessary, and there's a part of me that's sort of like, why are you here, dude? You deserve better than this. Don't associate with this man anymore. Stop it. Get out. Save yourself, kind of thing, You
just, like, should have left my ass in cold storage.
A little bit. There. Yeah. So, yeah, I was concerned about that, because he says to Bernard, like, oh, so you're just going to let me rot. And Bernard is essentially like, well, yeah.
He says, yeah, I'm going to patch you up when I get back, though. And the ice is going to help keep you from, turning into mush till I get back.
I mean...
But apparently Bernard was gone for a really long time, so that does not bode well for Stubbs.
Yeah, I'm not excited about seeing what shape Stubbs is in when we come back to this, is all I'm saying.
I mean, also, I'm not, like... he got shot a couple times in, like, the chest area, but so did Maeve, and she was fine.
True.
So I still am also, like, fuzzy on... how much damage was actually done to Stubbs.
Right.
Like, I mean, again, he's a host. If you, like, short of, like, taking their pearl out, you know, they're fucking fine.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they had to slice the one guy in half to kill him. And, you know, Maeve had to take a fucking sword right through her whole body coming out the back. So, yeah, kind of loosey-goosey with the rule.
Yes. Yeah, it's... Anyway, all right, yeah. Let's talk about Caleb.
All right.
First of all, I want to mention that these protests are really, like...
Isn't that wild?
Eerie right now.
This shit had to have been filmed, like, a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're, like, wearing masks and shit, and it's just...
I can't get over it. It was like there was a couple moments... There's one moment where I was like, well, this is essentially accurate, but they need more tear gas. And then they fired tear gas, and I was like, oh, okay. Cool. Yes. We are all on the same page after all.
Right? Yeah, that's... I was watching it today and just being like... You know, when the season was airing, you know, we were, like, right in the middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was, like, watching it the first time, we're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And one of the little signs was, like, from the riots when the show was, like, we will not be categorized, I think is what it said.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm just watching it like, nope, we will not.
Yeah, that was like the only thing that I really thought, and this is going to be such a small thing that you guys are going to fucking make fun of me. I know you are. I'm sorry. I felt like this is the first episode that I really sensed was filmed on a soundstage. There were a lot of moments, and I'm realizing what it is that there isn't wind.
Yep. All the moments where they're, like, on the prairie felt like you're not on no prairie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, and even with, like, the when they're out in the streets during the protests, everything is so still. There's just no sense of movement, and I know that they're trying to make things feel, like, hectic and like, oh, the world's falling apart. But until you get to the protests, which are really in the second half of the episode, you just see, like, oh, there's a car on fire. Oh, there's lots of trash. There's signs. Nothing really that, to me, felt genuinely like, oh, yeah, the world seems like it's completely disintegrating, you know? I would have liked to see people with young children trying to, like, hustle them from place to place, because people still have families that are going through all this. All we see are a bunch of late 20s and 30-somethings wandering around, you know, and that is not reflective of the actual world. And I would have liked to see an effort made to depict normal people coping and trying to hold it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing that I was like, it all felt like it was very staged in a way that it didn't feel about the other episodes. And so that sort of took me out of it a couple times, because I was just not as invested in these moments because it just felt fake. Right. And I don't, this is not usually a problem on this show. So I don't know what happened, if maybe, like, their budget was cut or what, but yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely some scenes that didn't feel like they were in the moment, you know? So we find out in this episode the real backstory for Caleb. We thought we had gotten to the bottom of it, but there's more.
There is more.
So we talked before about, you know, how he just happened to be in that alleyway when she was shot, and that they happened to meet, and whether or not that felt like that was part of her plan or not.
Right.
And you had even asked the question, like, how does she know? How does she keep being, like, a couple steps ahead, especially with Caleb, and, like, knowing all of his stuff? What did you think about finding out that they actually trained in the park?
That made total sense to me. Honestly, like, I would not... I asked at one point, just kind of threw it out there, like, is he a host? Because coming up with hosts to fight wars for you doesn't seem like it's outside of the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you? You can fight and not actually lose any of the lives of your actual citizens?
The only thing I can think of is that it's cheaper to use humans.
Right. That was really the thing. It's like, it probably is. But it made total sense to me. And so the only thing I didn't really understand is why he didn't remember that when he remembered everything else. Is it just supposed to be buried that deep?
I think so.
Okay.
It's weird because, he, like you said, just, pulled out these other memories, and this one doesn't come up. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe it wasn't triggered properly, and that sounds awful, but some of the other memories that were exposed because someone was telling him.
True.
This is what happened to you. And it's not until she says to him about Park 5, mm-hmm. and then it's like, oh, there's another fucking missing memory. And apparently, even though it is not cost effective to send hosts out to fight our wars, what we're doing is sending our soldiers to train at the park, to give them sort of like a real life experience and what it's like to go up against, humans. Mm-hmm. And he shows himself to be I don't want to say a good guy, but not a rapist.
That was really the thing that I struggled with this episode, is that this is categorized as a moment of kindness, mm-hmm. and I just do not think we should be fucking celebrating this like it's some amazing character trait of his, mm-hmm. that he doesn't rape women. Like, mm-hmm. and granted, they're not women, but nevertheless,
I think that's what the show is playing with too, is that can you rape a host, right? Like, so maybe you can't, air quotes, but you can choose to not engage in this behavior, even if there will be no consequences to you doing it, mm-hmm. which is really always going to be the test, right? The doing the right thing when there are consequences or people are watching is one thing, but doing it because it's just the thing you should do.
Yep.
I saw this meme the other day about shopping carts and how shopping carts will tell you everything you need to know about people. Have you seen this?
Yeah, there was a big fight about that on some group that I was in.
How do you fight about that?
Because there's a lot of people who are like, I am wrangling 3 children and barely make it out of the grocery store with my sanity. Or I have a disability and it is really painful to get to my car. And just a lot of like reasons why this isn't something that's like as ironclad as we are pretending it is. Do you know what I mean? There's exceptions to everything. It's just one of those like...
Of course there were exceptions. I can't believe there had to be a fight about it.
It was a big... I almost wonder if that wasn't in the Unspoiled group, actually. But it was months ago at this point, I think.
Oh, I just saw... Oh, I don't remember seeing it in the group. I just saw it the other day. But oh my God, we can fight about everything and anything.
It's true.
Like, just calm down. If you are not physically able to return your cart in a way that makes sense, that doesn't compromise you, then we're not counting you in this.
Yes, agreed.
So the crux of the meme is basically the shopping cart is like the test, because you can just leave it wherever and there'll be no consequences. Mm-hmm. Or you can return it and there'll be no praise, right? Mm-hmm. You can just do whatever you want to do. You get to decide in that moment, like, what you're going to do. And this was like Caleb's shopping cart moment.
Yeah,
like,
I guess so.
You know, like it was just, he made a choice in that moment to like, be like, no, we're not doing this. Mm-hmm. Everybody go to bed. And he's not a big hero, but Dolores takes note that he made a choice. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what made her pick him.
I don't feel like that's enough. Is that just me?
To pick him?
Yeah.
For this job? I agree, it's a little flimsy.
I wanted more. Just choosing to not rape these women, and, you know, even when there's no consequences, I feel like, is that supposed to be the sole foil to the... Because he said she picked me because of my capacity for violence. Is that it?
What do you mean?
Like,
no,
it's like, oh, well, we have seen his capacity for violence throughout this season. So let's see one moment of, like, goodness from him, and it's going to be this.
When he asked Maeve, why did she pick me? And he's still, like, thinking about what Sirach said, she picked me for my capacity for violence. Maeve says, no, she picked you for your ability to choose. Which I guess we are supposed to understand that in this world, there are not a lot of people who make choices that go against whatever their, like, algorithm says they're supposed to be, you know? Because if you remember that Caleb is an outlier, you know, mm-hmm. and is supposed to be this violent criminal kind of person who, you know, can't really be integrated into, like, society, mm-hmm. he should have been all on board with the raping.
I mean, there's different versions of an outlier, though, wouldn't you think? Like,
well, I think that's the thing too. Like and I don't know if the show is doing this on purpose or if this is just Sirach in the show doing this, where he is categorizing all the outliers as the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I think that as viewers, we're supposed to understand that, of course, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I guess that works. It's just such a, like, I don't know. I liked my assessment that I was, like, guessing at a little bit better, and I think it got lost when we lost that part of the episode. But mm-hmm. my guess had been Dolores knew that he was somebody who had nothing left to lose, who was at his wit's end, suffering from trauma, and wanting to make a major change in the world. And that would have been adequate for me, is like this, you know, maybe even more, she follows him around a couple weeks and watches him make a variety of choices that are all somewhat good-hearted. Mm-hmm. So it's not just this one thing, it's, oh, I saw you, like, barely had any money and you gave your money to somebody who was, like, begging on the street. Or I saw that you were, like, for example, he's, like, going and visiting his mom all the time. Which, honestly, that was part of my theory, too, about him maybe being a host, was that his mother said, "You're not my son." And I was like, oh my God, maybe she knows that he is really not her son.
Like Hale's son.
Yeah, exactly. But I just, that one moment, especially when we don't know if Dolores is alive, like awake yet in that scene. Do we know?
I don't think we know for sure. My assumption is that this is before she is awake. This appears to be, like, you know, in her past as well, like prior to when the show starts. What was I getting ready to say? I'm sorry, I got distracted by her putting on her arm sleeve.
Oh my God, that is such a
Can we
wild
talk about that?
Moment.
So, all right, so the end of the last season ended with, end of last episode ended with her doing that, what do you call that? With the electric pulse?
EMP. Electromagnetic pulse, yeah.
And there's like a overhead voice or voiceover that says, I have instructions for you. And in this episode, we see her and Maeve laid out, and Dolores' pearl is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And Caleb has taken her pearl, and he's on his way to some secret bunker where there is a Dolores bot in a weird ice/coffin box waiting, just waiting.
Did she plant this for him specifically, or was this just some backup that she had in general and the system knew about it?
I don't know. I feel like this is a backup plan of hers, and I don't know. Like, I guess the system was aware of it because that's what gave him the instructions.
Right.
Right? And that's how he knows where to go. So
I'm just trying to figure out how much of this she, planned out to the letter and how much of it just sort of worked itself out.
Well, it's a little bit of both, because when he comes and puts the pearl in, one of the first things she says is, "You brought me back. I wasn't sure you would have."
Yeah.
Her plan is for him to do this, but she's not guaranteed he will make the decision to actually come through.
See, I kind of took that more as I wasn't sure if I died that you would, not here. Well, I guess that's the same thing. I'm sorry, I just hit my mic.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to lift it up out of my way a little. Yeah, I guess I see what you mean, because she would have had to know that he would be able to find this packaged Dolores. So, okay, I accept this.
Right. So then, we haven't seen this move since season 1, I don't think, where the face splits open.
I hate it.
Not a fan.
My God in heaven.
I am not a fan. And I feel like this
haunt
is worse.
My dreams.
In, I guess it was season 1, it's the young Ford who does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This feels way worse somehow.
Because it sits there like that for ages. It's open from the start. It was like watching one of those pimple popper videos where it's just I can't tear my eyes away as it's closing up. I'm just oh God. But I need to watch until it's finished and her face is back together. I just can't. Ugh.
It was not my favorite part of the episode.
Dislike.
And this is when she tells him basically, his whole deal, and that there's a weird moment, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, guys. When he's asking her, what do you want? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
She talks about how he found her in the tunnel. And would he have helped her if she didn't have this face and she didn't have this skin? And it cuts to him holding her in the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, "Don't ask my motivations, or don't question my motivations, and I won't question yours." And that felt out, for me.
It felt
like it didn't fit.
In direct contrast to the whole and you didn't rape us, so you're a good guy thing that they're also trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it supposed to be that he only helped her because he thought she was hot and was hoping that she would be forever indebted to him? Because I do think that if you believe he wouldn't have done the same for somebody who doesn't look like you, then you don't think he's a particularly great guy.
Right.
So why would you pick him then?
Yeah, I don't think that she was suggesting that he would have harmed her in the alleyway or anything, but this idea that he was only helpful because she's... And you know what, though? Let's be real for just a quick second. Pretty face is more likely to get assistance.
True.
Right?
100%.
And some of that is not necessarily a moral failing. Some of that is just our conditioning and our programming and what we're taught to value.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's almost unfair to use that as a judgment against him, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I think it's a valid thing to point out to him, but yeah, in the way that she is doing it, it doesn't feel fair, especially considering what she like tells him made her pick him later. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I thought that was a kind of a weird hiccup in the episode. And it's like, it's really short. Nothing happens of it either. Like, the conversation is done and it's never revisited. So it's just like a weird throwaway line to include.
Yeah. Especially considering, like, I mean, that I feel is part of Dolores' whole deal, right? Is that she makes use of the fact that she knows how men react. And I mean, Maeve even says later, I didn't think you'd be so easy to seduce, but then you are a man. I don't know. I agree it was off.
And she is kind of like the damsel in distress in the park, right? So, maybe that was just her.
Maybe she was just annoyed that she thinks it worked on him. But, like, what did you want him to do? Like, she's making an assumption that doesn't feel like it's based in anything other than what she has seen from men in general. Right. And
which normally I'm a big fan of.
Like, honestly, yeah, that's normally like totally valid, and I'm like, that's fair. But in this situation, it feels like she really thinks that she's like zinging him a little bit.
Yeah.
Like she
absolutely
caught him, and I'm like, you didn't really. You're saying something with the assumption that this is likely true, and maybe it is, but it doesn't. Yeah. I don't know if it makes the same impact if he doesn't know that is true about himself. Right. I don't know.
It's played like a real got you moment, you know? And it was just kind of like, but did you get him though? Yeah. Because even the cut to the flashback, it's him holding her as she's been shot. And, I mean, I think he's like rubbing her shoulder or something. But even that flashback didn't feel like salacious or anything, you know? So, all right. Well, there's that. Okay. I'm glad we agree on that. So, if we're going to stick with Caleb, we have to jump towards the end of the episode, I guess.
All right.
I mean, there's he goes and he puts together the new Dolores body bot. And again, I have to say, not a huge fan of this scene. Yeah. And then they are going to go and take the new strategy and kind of upload it at Insight into Rehoboam. Right. And so then we get a lot of just them trying to navigate the city and the riots and get to where they need to go. There's chaos. We run into Giggles and Ash.
I was so excited to see them again, and then Giggles gets shot, and I was just like, why are we doing this? And I think he's going to be okay.
I believe he's going to be okay as well.
I just really was not a fan of this turn of events at all. I'm just glad that they didn't kill him, because I thought they were going to kill him, and I was, like, not interested.
Right. Yeah, they just shoot him and he drops, and then they, like, go on to the next person, which was, like, really lucky. Mm-hmm. He gets into a copter.
Yeah, and they just let him fly away?
Listen.
What the fuck was that?
You can control that shit. Why would you just let him fly away somewhere?
I couldn't understand. They, like, shot Giggles because it looked like he was going for it. But then they just stopped trying to prevent anybody else and turn around and just let it. And he sits in that shit looking out the window for a minute before it takes off. And it takes off very slowly. Yeah.
And, like, you could just shut it down remotely.
Exactly. I do not understand how this, like, worked out. I don't get it. This was a major, like, problem for me when I was watching it. I was just like, surely somebody's going to fucking shoot at it at the very least. Nothing. Not a thing. I didn't get it.
I guess we're supposed to believe that there's just so much happening on the ground that he just, like, disappears in the chaos. But
it's not chaotic enough to convince me.
They watched him disappear into it. Like, so, you know. But, so that's the thing that happened.
Yeah.
And him and Dolores get separated. He goes to Insight. There are some guards outside. He is able to dispatch them. He gets a key, gets in, and doesn't get very far. He deals with like one goon who is, I think, the same person that finds Dolores' body with the pearl missing. And takes care of that guy, and then Maeve and a couple of other underlings show up, and there's no way for him to fight. So they deliver him to Serac.
Can we just mention the way that he takes down that dude with his neck breaking over the step was really brutal.
It was so good, and I don't know if that is supposed to be like, oh, this is a move he knew would do that, or if he just did a body slam and the guy just happened to break his neck and it was like super lucky. Either way, I was here for it because I love that kind of shit.
That dude was like, I feel like they could have done a little bit more with him, because I felt like they wanted him to be much more of like the baddie right hand man.
Yeah,
you know?
He was supposed to be like very menacing, like, oh, this guy's like trouble.
I didn't feel it really, but nevertheless.
I don't know what this actor's nationality is, but because of Serac, I just assume that he's French. And then the minute somebody is French, I go into my little Simpsons joke about the chowder.
Oh, God.
Say it, Frenchie.
I hate you. You and Owen. Ma'am.
So by the time Caleb gets to Insight, if I want to make sure, Dolores is already there, right? Because the fight with Dolores and Maeve happens at the same time, but kind of elsewhere, right? So he shows up to Insight. Serac is there with his people. Maeve is there, and Dolores is all hooked up to the machine. This was horrifying.
Yeah, it's really like, I kept having to remind myself, like, her skin is not really skin. It's like they're, especially because this is like an old model. So at one point, Maeve hits her with the sword, and it gets like stuck in her metal bones. So I just kind of kept having to be like, it's not the thing. It's not what it looks like. But yeah, it's really, really awful.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, like, he's got these giant cords going down to the ports that we know that are kind of like in their arms, because we see them do that. Like, we see Bernard hook himself up in his arm all the time.
And in her chest.
And, it's so bad. And it has her whole, I don't know, mainframe doesn't seem right.
I think that's accurate, though.
Is that right?
I think so.
And it is deleting her.
Yes.
As it's searching for this key.
Yep.
And I did not expect it to be as upsetting as it was.
Yeah, because they, like, show us little flashes of the memories that are getting deleted. And, like, some of them, I'm like, good, delete that shit.
Well, yeah, right. Nobody wants to be carrying that shit
around. But then there were some things that I was just like, oh, God, this is awful.
Yeah. It was much harder to watch tonight than I expected. And I don't know if we should stop and go to a different character, or just, because now we're almost like at the end of the episode.
Let's just go ahead with it.
So Serac wants the key, and they're trying to get it out of Dolores' brain, and it is not happening.
Yeah.
And
Maeve is like, let me do it.
Yeah.
And she dips in there and comes back and is like, oh, she doesn't have it.
And what did you think of this conversation between Maeve and Dolores in the prairie?
You got to stay next to your mic. You're going in and out all over the place.
Sorry. What did you think of Maeve and Dolores having this conversation?
I don't see why Dolores didn't tell Maeve this to begin with.
Right.
That's the main thing, is like,
yeah.
I don't really see what she gained by keeping all these motivations to herself.
When she's fighting Maeve and she's telling her, I'm not your enemy, Maeve says, well, let me see.
Right?
And Dolores runs instead.
Yeah. Like, why? I genuinely want to know. Is it because she thinks that the only way that they will hook her up to this mainframe is if Maeve thinks she's an enemy? Because she knows that this is what's going to give Caleb the access, right? If they hook her in and she has this like key in her mind from Solomon, that is what will give him the... God, I was about to say the reach around. That's not what I meant. that is gonna be what gives him the... What's the thing I want?
Like override?
Maybe that's what I want, yeah.
The reach around.
Yeah.
The bypass?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Bypass. I think that's it.
Is it inanimate?
Callback. So yeah, maybe it's like she's trying to make it so that she is seen as the enemy in order to put herself in that position, but I just don't really know why.
Right.
Maybe she believes that if Maeve gets into her head, anything Maeve sees will then be reported to Sirach somehow, like, because he can see what Maeve knows, I think, right? Although he doesn't know that Caleb took the pearl. He doesn't know that Caleb exists, so maybe not.
Yeah, it's they don't find out about Caleb until like this episode, and Sirach is upset with Maeve because she doesn't tell him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, bitch, I thought you knew everything, though.
Yep.
I think that for me, I'm trying to imagine what happens if Maeve does read Dolores when she asks, right? Mm-hmm. Part of me is like, well, they could have just gotten into cahoots, and Dolores' plan still could have, played out.
That's my thought, is like, I don't see why you don't trust Maeve to help play a role in this situation. Like, that's her whole thing.
Right. It could be that Dolores ultimately doesn't trust that once Maeve sees what... Because here's the thing. Dolores doesn't know for a fact, the way she seems to know a lot of other things, that Maeve will agree to her plan once she's aware of it. Because what Sirach is offering Maeve is her daughter.
True.
So maybe Dolores doesn't know if what she wants to do is enough to convince Maeve to join her. Because the whole conversation is about how Maeve has to pick sides, right? And that conversation doesn't happen until Dolores is already like laid out and hooked up to the machine. So, it's possible Maeve could have read Dolores' mind, decided, nope, I'm going to stay with Sirach because I want to be with my daughter, and now I know that Dolores doesn't have the key.
Right.
And if Sirach knows Dolores doesn't have the key, Dolores doesn't get hooked up to the machine, she can't, use Solomon to get the override, and blah, 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 blah. That's like the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I guess that works. It's not really what I want here.
Yeah, no.
But, alright.
I will say the show made us wait a really long time. And I'm kind of salty that Dolores is gone now. And I mean, as much as I love that Maeve has like come to the other side, I was really hoping that we would get a pairing.
Yeah, yeah,
them,
definitely.
And the show just was like, no, you're not going to have that.
I'm not convinced Dolores is gone. Because, like, that was deleted, but there is another version of her running around still, isn't there?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. So we got Charlotte.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Dolores, I guess, and that'll bring us to Charlotte, because she really only has, like, the two scenes. Mm-hmm. Alright, so, good Lord, I'm all over the place now. Dolores. Where do you want to start?
The fact that Charlotte's haunting her somehow.
All right, that's a good enough spot. So when does that happen?
That happens when they finally meet up with the protesters, and it turns out that Dolores is like paying them.
Yes.
And she does the exact thing that they did to Caleb at one point, and she's like, find out how much they're paying the sniper and triple it if he'll kill these other two and walk away. And I was like,
and he does.
I don't understand how Caleb doesn't look over at her and be like, really? Because I feel like I'd have a problem with that. I'm just saying.
I thought about that too when that happened, because I was like, okay, show.
Yeah, you know, like, damn.
So, Hale is a whole other thing now.
Yeah, it's like she has evolved and does not feel like Dolores anymore. She is her own. She's not Charlotte either.
Nope.
She's Charloris. That's too close to clitoris. Sorry.
Ma'am.
She
Take
is
it back.
Delot.
No.
That's good. I like it.
That's an accounting firm.
Delot.
Actually, that's Deloitte.
That's their shipping name.
I laughed really hard too because no one else can see Charlotte but Dolores.
Oh my god, Caleb being like, who are you talking to? And her not answering him, and she keeps on, and Caleb just keeps standing there and waits for her to finish. Caleb, sweetie,
I mean, there's a lot going on. Caleb has a lot on his plate right now.
I just need him to have a little bit of self-respect so that when somebody in his party appears to be talking to someone who's not there, he doesn't just hang out until they're done with their call.
And this is who she's picked to be our leader for the human race.
And, like, you know what? Now that I brought that up, too, later on, Caleb is like, so you're a robot? Who the hell are you? When I thought they'd had this talk already.
Yeah, like, so... so when he puts her pearl back in at this bunker, and he's just like, what the fuck are you? Who are you? And she tells him a little bit about Delos. It seems like new information to him.
It does. Even though he was like, you're home? You mean WestWorld? Like...
Right. So I
Sorry.
So I guess my take on this scene isn't the literal, like, who are you and what are you? Like, he knows she's a host. He knows what WestWorld is because we've heard him talk about it. We've heard him reference it. So I think he's asking a bit of a deeper question, right? Like, what are you really doing here? Like, what is your real agenda? You are more than just like what, like in my imagination, because the show did not show us this conversation. My imagination says that when she has this talk with Caleb, when he realizes that she's a host, she is very
vague.
Vague. Not a lot of details. Not a lot of information about what she really wants to happen. And she probably spun the story about, I'm just like you, and I was created to perform. The same sort of stuff we've heard her say before. Also, she mentioned real quick, too, that when Caleb is in Insight with Sirach and Maeve, and they tell him Dolores' plan leads to humanity disappearing, they show him sort of like a schematic of like what happens.
Right.
And it's like, chaos, 12 years, like major mass casualty event. Like four of those fucking things.
Yeah.
And then I think it says humanity collapses.
Human civilization collapses, I think, yeah.
Good Lord.
Which, like, the whole point is supposed to be that if you know what the information is in this machine, it won't necessarily go that way.
Because you have the power to choose now
right.
what you want your life to be and what you want the world to be.
So I was kind of frustrated by the fact that he gets this information and then gets, like, enraged at her about it when
right.
I thought you understood how that worked. Like, this doesn't have to go this way, you know? And if you had uploaded it, maybe it would have told you the potential outcomes and given you a way around it. Like, he's just sort of taking it at face value that this is going to happen in a way that I thought the whole point of this season was meant to be. You can't predict that sort of thing.
Right.
And,
well,
I don't know. I found this frustrating, actually.
There's, like, so he has the, I don't know, the fucking, what do you call those? Thumb drive.
Right.
To put into the machine, but Sirach crushes it.
Right.
When Caleb gets the reach around.
I would appreciate it if we could all just let that one go.
And he tells Rehoboam to erase itself. So, and this is a question, because you might remember more than me. Was that what was on the thumb drive? Or is this a new strategy? Is this a new thing?
You mean, was that plan that was meant to end humanity what was on the thumb drive?
No. The, on the thumb drive, I guess my question is, what was on the thumb drive? There was a plan I thought on the thumb drive was a plan to destroy the Rehoboam.
Oh, no. It was a plan to start a revolution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the rebellion plan.
So I guess my question is, once Caleb gets control, why does he not just say, do that strategy? Instead, he says to erase the whole thing.
Because it was going to lead to the downfall of civilization, apparently.
Mm.
But, again, I mean, I'm not mad at deleting Rehoboam. If I do think that's probably dealing with, the crux of the issue.
Yeah.
But I don't like how much credence he's giving it when we're meant to be this is all free will. And also, I don't like him having to be who are you? And to Dolores, when we thought they had this conversation, and that makes you have to headcanon what likely she said to him when she...
Right.
Why don't they just show us that fucking conversation then? Guys? I just don't... There's some choices this season that, overall, I really like this season, but there are just some moments here and there that I'm just I don't get what you wanted from me and what you got out of making it go this way. Right.
I agree with you. I think that you have to erase and shut down Rehoboam, right? Mm-hmm. Because as long as that is functioning, there is no free will.
Right.
Well, that's been hammered throughout the whole season. Also, we need to talk about Sirach with that earpiece, too.
What in the fuck was that?
So this whole fucking time, he has not been anything but a mouthpiece for this fucking AI thing.
Yep.
That has been really running everything in a way that I don't think the audience was supposed to understand, right, until this moment. Mm-hmm. Sirach is positioned as a mastermind, right? He is in control. He's the only one that has access to it. And he's using it to plot his course. But it becomes that it's not just that he's using it. He has completely given over his own will to it as well, right? Mm-hmm. He's not just using it to control other people's outcomes. He has also voluntarily been why would I need to make choices for myself when I can just let this thing tell me? Mm-hmm.
And how is it supposed to be that, like, Maeve can hear it? Is that supposed to be, like, her tapping into the technology of it?
I think so, because when she does realize what's happening and she hears it, and the way they have it on the show, it's like this weird kind of echo thing, you know? She says almost immediately, "I can't believe I didn't catch this sooner."
Yeah.
Like she's,
Same,
you know, like,
Maeve.
you know, so like...
I'm just saying.
And the only thing I can say about that is that, as far as I can remember, this is the first time Maeve has been with Sirach this close to the machine.
Oh.
And maybe it's a proximity thing.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it.
We just keep having to, like, bandwank shit. I don't want that.
Well, you know what? This is what happened with season 2 as well.
True. Yeah.
So, all right. So that's what happens to Dolores. She is hooked up to this machine. It is searching for the key that she does not have. Maeve goes into her head. They have a conversation about how Maeve needs to pick sides. Dolores finally shares her plan and what she wants to happen, which is a world where everyone has a choice, both hosts and humans, and that it is not the ugliness that she remembers and holds on to, even though that was her original motivation. But it turns out that it's these small moments of kindness that are informing her choices and making her decide that the best thing to do for everyone is to get this machine out.
Right.
And, like, just tear all this shit down because it's all a mess and try again. And then we leave her kind of memory wiped, you know, brain wiped or whatever, and just kind of, I guess, dead, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Maeve comes out of this conversation. There's a fucking fight scene that's all, like, blacked out with only, like, flashes of light.
I enjoy
and
that.
Then I did, too. And then when it was over, it was just, like, a bunch of dead fucking people on the ground. And Caleb is like, "Oh, you're on my team now?"
Caleb, poor Caleb, man. He has really been through it the past couple days.
And Sirach is wounded, and he is trying to instruct Rehoboam to call the authorities and to get a medic, and they're just like, "Yeah, no, you don't live here anymore.
Contact the police. I need help." Ugh, whatever, Karen.
Listen. Right. Oh my god. Oh shit.
He's just like, between this moment of just being like, "Brother, tell me how I can fix this," and finding out that he's just like taking fucking literal line by line, like Johnny Depp with his earpiece. I can't understand. Like, I just, I don't know. I can't decide if I like or hate it. Part of me likes it because it's like, oh, this guy thinks, like, or we thought he was the thing. And it turns out that, in fact, he has bought in so much that he doesn't even, like, let himself speak for himself anymore. Yeah. And another part of me is kind of like, I wish that you had let me have that knowledge one episode ago. And maybe Maeve hasn't caught on to it yet, but I know. And that, I think, would make it more unsettling for me to be aware that he is just taking lines from this thing and Maeve doesn't realize that yet.
Right. Ooh, yeah. No, I don't like that.
Right? Like, I feel like that would, I don't know, I feel like that would make use of that in a way that it feels, it was just not given room to breathe, that whole concept.
It's I think that's a really good way to say it. They didn't really give enough space for us to be able to appreciate the implications that everything that we've seen this season has been this machine, and not even Sirach. And it's curious to me, like, does Dolores know about this?
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't think so. I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, like, that's unclear whether or not she understands that Sirach is just basically, like Maeve calls him, a puppet, which I think is fair.
100%.
So, all right. So we're back to Dolores, and the ghost hail Dolores. Deloitte bot.
That was painful.
That was really hard for me, you guys. Please send your thoughts and prayers to me during this difficult time.
The lot bot.
The lot bot.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's fine. And she is just telling Dolores that I don't need you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You sold me out. You never cared about me. Dolores is like, I'm sorry about your family. And she's like, they were holding me back. It was just a weakness. And you're my other weakness.
Yep.
And she disables Dolores.
It's pretty great, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really on Darbot. What did we say? Delot.
Don't look for me.
Delot.
Don't look for me for help after the way you just mocked me.
I'm not really on her team. Really?
Right.
But, like...
It's not like we're rooting for her, but this moment is super satisfying.
Yeah, because, like, Dolores... I was so worried about it. Bitch.
Yeah.
Bitch, look.
Yeah.
You may be, like, trying to see the beauty in and not have the motivations that I thought, but don't just do that either. Okay? We're not playing this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And she says to Dolores, first of all, you told me that I would end up alone, that I would be doing this by myself. And you figured out ways to control me. So, of course, I'm going to do the same thing because I am you. Mm-hmm. And Dolores seems shook and completely unprepared for this eventuality.
Isn't that weird?
I thought it's super weird.
Like, that's the whole thing, is that they're all you. Why wouldn't...
Right? The only thing I can think of is that Dolores did not anticipate what we talked about a couple episodes ago as far as, like, the bleeding between the Dolores Pearl that's in the Hale sort of persona. That Dolores didn't account for that. I don't know if it's because there's just no way for her to... I guess there was no way to know because this would be... The Charlotte Hale bot would be the... other than Arnold, like the only other host that is sort of put into the mind of an actual human. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not an actual human put in the place.
Well, yeah. But with real human memories and emotions that are like downloaded and coexisting with the Pearl is what I mean.
I guess that we did decide that she had the memories, huh?
Yeah. So you have like this download, for lack of a better word, of who and what Charlotte Hale was. And then you have the Dolores Pearl in there. I guess my question would be, because where I was heading with that is that Dolores wouldn't know what kind of problem that would create, or that it was even possible to create like a new being, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But I'm thinking about Dolores' knowledge and experience with Bernard, who is the only other person I can think of that we did this with, right?
Yeah.
Where you create a host and then you... Oh, you know what, though? It wasn't... I don't know. I don't know if Bernard's Arnold memories are in there the same way they are with Hale. You know what I mean?
See,
you know what I
this
mean?
is what I get like, tripped up on is they really play it fast and loose with this stuff. I would like a little bit more, for lack of a better word, world building. I would like more rules that are firmly in place that let us know what's possible and what's not.
Right.
And it's not like they have to completely box themselves in. If we explore and find out that there's another thing that we can do that I hadn't anticipated, that's fine. But this sort of thing where it's really unclear and we have to sort of suss it out, that is... I wish that we spent more time talking about that, you know?
I wonder if the show is leaving it open purposefully because the whole idea is this is almost like a new life form. And we don't know what it does and how it looks because it's not been done before. Or is the show just choosing not to make rules because they want to just be able to do whatever? Like, I'm not sure which it is, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's the second one.
Yeah. I mean, but we're watching hosts become conscious and then inhabit one body with, like, the consciousness of a human. Yeah, I don't know. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Arnold now and, like, how we built the Bernard bot in season 1. I'm trying to remember whether it was a matter of them just... It feels to me like they built Bernard with a lot of coaching and just feeding what they knew of his life into it.
Yeah. That's what I assumed, and so that was what I sort of assumed about Charlotte, but then it felt like that wasn't quite accurate. I don't know.
Yeah. Charlotte's feels different from Bernard initially because the Charlotte bot is fully aware that it is a separate being sharing memory, I guess. Right?
But
as
because they've been told, whereas Bernard wasn't told, he had to, like, figure that out. I assume, you know?
I mean...
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. Alright, well, what else? Where are we at now?
I have completely lost track.
So,
do you want to talk about the stinger?
Yeah, I was going to say we could talk about, like, what's going on with William in this episode, because there's really not a lot. There's just, like, the one scene and then the stinger scene. But yeah, let's talk about it.
So, fucking William is...
Alright, let's not go to the stinger first. Let's just talk about him in this episode. It's only...
Because he only has a little thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we catch up with him at the gas station. He's got a rifle on Stubbs and Bernard. He shoots Stubbs, and then Bernard turns on, like, Superbot.
Right.
And every time he gripped his fucking head in his hand and threw his body around, I hollered. It was so deeply satisfying, you guys.
He slaps him at one point. Like a open-handed slap.
And does it like 4 times, real quick, if I'm not mistaken. I loved every minute of this. I didn't realize how much I hated this character.
The look of shock on his face, on William's face, when he just gets slapped.
It's so good.
It is wonderful. I love it so much.
So he goes scurrying away, and then that's when Bernard gets the visit from Lawrence. And then we see William in his fucking white suit, covered in blood, chilling in the lobby of a very fancy building, drinking very fancy whiskey.
I love this fucking... He said, what does he say, $12,000 bottle?
$12,000 bottle of whiskey. And he wants to know where his fucking money is. And it turns out that because he's officially dead, all his shit's been frozen.
Sucks to suck.
And he tells this man, you're going to get my fucking money, And the guy's like, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to save the world. And the face this guy makes.
I can't.
He's like that gif. You know that gif of the basketball player that like nods his head no and then nods it yes.
This dude, I am really interested to see what happens. That's all I'm going to say. I have no idea what to expect because he's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit.
It's true.
But he's out here like, I'm going to be the good guy now. Even though I have no confidence this man knows anything about good and bad. Like, what evidence is there that he has any moral compass whatsoever?
Who are you fucking kidding? Is all I could think. Like, we met you. You realize we already met you, right?
Right.
So, then we don't see him again until the stinger, which is him walking into Delos at some time in the future. And he's dressed in black, but he's not like WestWorld Man in Black, right? Mm-hmm. And he shoots this guard. First of all, he comes in like a crazy person. Where are the hosts? Where are you keeping them? And the poor girl at the desk is like, can I help you?
This poor woman tries to call security. I was so glad he didn't shoot her because I really kind of thought he was just going to fucking do that. And I was like, oh, I did too. Dude.
Like, this is you being a good guy?
Right? This is what... But he's such a perfect character for that reason because, dudes like him genuinely think that. Mm-hmm. They genuinely do this horrific, heinous shit, and then they turn around and they're like, why doesn't everybody understand how great I am? And it's like, sir.
Don't you see what I'm doing for you people? I'm saving the world over here. How dare you not notice?
I am disgusted.
And so he goes down to the lab because it's a pretty good guess that that's where, the hosts are. Mm-hmm. And it turns out he is not mistaken.
No.
Charlotte Hale is down there with a giant floor of host making machines, just like as far as the eye can see.
Which we don't see until after the whole thing. Because you asked me, did you watch The Stinger? And I was like, no, I didn't. And then I went to watch it. And when the bot of him comes out, I went, oh, damn. And then the camera goes to the fucking, like, suite of manufacturing. And I just, oh, damn. Because that changes everything. And honestly, what I said about, like, wishing that Caleb had more of a plan, I think that this made up for that. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got a plan anyway.
Somebody's got a plan.
Somebody's doing something. So, all right, I guess. Like, fine.
So he comes sauntering in, and Charlotte Hale's there, and he's like, "Oh, I thought your kind could fix yourself," because her arm is still has the burn scars. It looks like a rad ass tattoo, actually. Mm-hmm. And what did she say? Just reminds me who I am.
I wanted to keep a reminder of who the fuck you all are.
That's right. That's so much better than the way I remembered it. Whew. That's real good.
And then he starts to be like, well, I know who the fuck you all are. And I think he said something like, yeah, we're the ones that are going to kill you or something. And then she's like, oh, bitch, you are so basic. Do you know how predictable you are? All I entered was like 2 gigs of code into this dude. I swear to God. And he is exactly like you. That is how boring you are. And this dude wanders out in the full fucking getup.
Oh my God. And William was like, who the fuck are you supposed to be? Like, you don't know.
Get the hell out of here.
And we get another William. We get some more William on William violence. And there's a moment where the William host says, you always thought that it was just the dark side of you, but there is no side. This is just you.
Which I really liked.
I did too. I sure did. And then he slits his fucking throat.
Honestly, everything I ever wanted.
I feel like I was waiting the whole 3 seasons for that one moment.
Yes.
Like, I, like, in the back of my mind, every time he was on camera, I would just be like, when is somebody going to slit his fucking throat?
The fact that he, like, a copy of him is being forced to fight for the other side is just so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fuck you. Your entire memory. Nobody will know that he's a bot, or maybe she'll tell them. I don't know what she'll do. But the idea that everybody is going to see him walking around again and think that he defected or something.
Right.
I mean, that is just wonderful.
Now, let me ask you this. I don't have an answer. What do you think about the time? Like, does this feel like this is very much in the future or not that far in the future? Or because the end of season 2 showed us the Man in Black host.
Right.
But that was presented at the time as being like way in the future. And now we're here with a Man in Black host. But so like, but
what
William,
was the context that we saw at the end of the last season?
It was like one of those testing for fidelity kind of things.
Oh, right.
I think that's what it was. So when we see William walk into Delos, you know, he looks just like he's been looking. So that would suggest that like very little time has passed.
I'm going to say 150 years. Not that far.
How is our William walking in looking like he still looks to us? Unless this William that shows up to kill Charlotte is also a host?
Wait. I thought you were asking how far from our time this takes place at.
I mean, like, because, you know, we see him go to the hotel, and that's clearly, like, our timeline, because he's still wearing the white scrubs and stuff from the hospital.
Oh, but our timeline, you mean, like, I thought you meant us, like, you and me and the world.
No, the show.
Okay, I got you. So, how far from the first season do I think this is happening?
No. How far between the scene that we see with when everything with this season is happening, the season finale, and we see the Man in Black William is at the hotel talking to that guy,
right.
And then he walks into Delos.
Right.
How much time do you think has passed between those two scenes?
Oh. Like an hour.
So you think it's like right away?
Yeah.
Okay.
I figured right away. If
that's the case,
changed. So that's like maybe he had to go home. I don't know.
So, but here's the thing: you have to think. Well, and I don't mean it's like you have to think about it, but what's tripping me up is that Charlotte is installed at Delos still in some way, even though Sirach had wanted her killed, and she has managed to set up this whole suite of, you know, host spots being built, right?
True.
And we know that the thing with the car and her family dying, that happens really right before, you know, there's very little time between when that car accident happens and when she like haunts Dolores as a hologram or whatever. So it feels like there had to, you know, but I can't decide what I think that time I can't decide how much time I think has passed.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a good question. I didn't really think about it. I just kind of was like, oh yeah, he went home and showered and headed right out. But yeah, I guess not.
So, who else? So we talked about Maeve a little bit throughout because you know she has her own storyline, but it really is in, I guess, I don't want to say she doesn't have her own storyline because she does, but it really is in tandem with Dolores. I think for the duration of this episode. So there really isn't that much to talk about. There's like a bunch of fight scenes. But the most important stuff is her having that moment with Dolores and then choosing a side and deciding to help Caleb. And the episode ends with them kind of hand in hand almost watching the world start to burn.
Yes.
And being like, all right, are you ready? Because this is coming.
I don't know what to... I don't know what is going to happen, RoShawn.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for season 4. I am here for a host army, building a whole new society because humans are terrible and we did a very bad job of it.
Agreed.
I don't know what Caleb, the leader of this new either revolution or society or whatever it's supposed to be. Maeve says, Caleb asked her, which I thought was really sweet, believe it or not. Caleb says, you told me you were working with him because he has the most important thing to you. And she says, yep, my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Which turns out, by the way, that Serac was never planning on doing that. He was never going to hold up his end of the bargain. He was full of shit the whole time.
Yes.
But Maeve says, I will be reunited with her, just not today, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was the exact line.
Yeah. So she has kind of, reconciled that it's not going to happen right now, but she still believes it's possible. And in the meantime, it looks like she's just going to go on some adventures with Caleb.
Yeah, which I'm not mad about. I'm very interested.
I'm not either. Yeah, I'm not mad either. I wouldn't mind seeing, what that... Because she's such a different partner than Dolores. She's so... I love there's a moment, too, where she talks to Caleb about how they were so dissimilar,
Mm-hmm.
And I think she said something like, I never really understood her before.
Right.
But Maeve is feeling like she finally has an understanding of what Dolores was really about.
Mm-hmm.
I like that too. I am surprisingly satisfied with the way that Maeve and Dolores' relationship sort of ends.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, I understood what you meant when you said that you wanted there to be a team up.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the two of them are not meant to coexist.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't really work well with somebody else of they're both alpha bitches. You know? Yeah. And if they wanted to be on the same side but working on different shit, then maybe. Right. But that would essentially be pretty similar to what we are seeing anyway. Well,
yeah. I really like the way you put that, where they can't sort of exist at the same time, because throughout this season it was much more confrontational between the two of them, but the first two seasons it was really the two of them on entirely different tracks, and they would cross paths, but they were just on two very different paths. And I think you're right. I don't think that they could be in the same space at the same time. Yeah. There's that. That's just too much.
Agreed.
So I'm sorry. I know we bounced around, and people might be like, "Oh, you didn't talk about the thing," but I think we talked about most of the things.
I think we did. It's a very big episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have to record Cora after this, so we can't keep on going too long.
Nope. It's been 2 hours.
It has.
So, yeah.
But yeah, I did have a bunch of small problems with this finale, but overall, I think I am a fan of this season more than season 2. Mm-hmm. And I find Caleb to be a pretty compelling character.
Yeah, I enjoyed his additions to the story a lot, and I really appreciated what they did with giving us some things to think about as far as like how we are similar to the host in ways that I don't think we thought about before it was brought up. You know, the idea that we are also programmed. You know, that we get set on our own loops. That we think we have more choice than we actually have. You know, I think all of those were really solid additions to the story and things to kind of like chew over.
Yeah, and I just, you know, it's a really, lately, whenever we get like a new like straight white guy added to a story, I kind of am like, all right, well, and I feel like they've managed to really make him feel like relatable in a way that I was worried about initially.
Right.
And
what did you think of Aaron Paul in this role?
I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I enjoy, you know, I know he's done other stuff. Obviously, I've only ever seen him in Breaking Bad, and I thought he was really good in this.
Yeah, I watched a little interview with him and Dolores at the end, like after I watched the finale, and I think he's in love with her.
Oh shit!
And there's just a vibe when he was talking about like performing with her and her laugh, and I was just like, oh shit, he's got it bad.
I mean, I might catch feelings if I had to work with her. Yeah, I mean, I'm only human. Well, I am glad you enjoyed this season. I was really excited for you to watch it, and I hope that you would enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. Because I was a little worried after season 2, you know. So
I was too.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening and sticking with us with this season. And RoShawn and I are going to be covering the next 2 episodes of what is it? Mars Attacks? Mars Cat?
No, Red Dwarf.
That's the one. Red Dwarf. And
Mars Attacks.
I just like I think the red put Mars in my head. I don't know. But we are going to be covering that for a commission next week, and then the week after that, we are going to begin recording A Song of Ice and Fire officially. So everybody stay tuned for that. If you are interested, it will be up on iTunes on the regular feed.
Oh my god, I can't believe we're really doing
It's
this.
very exciting. So, yeah, stay tuned for that, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and we will see you next year, maybe 2 years, depending on how long it takes them, with season 4. Till then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.